My name is Elise Hammond, and I used to believe I had the kind of life people envied. It wasn't flashy or extravagant, but it was stable. It was warm. I had a husband, Marcus, who kissed me on the forehead every morning before heading off to work. I had 2 children, Noah, who was 7 and obsessed with dinosaurs, and Lily, a thoughtful 10-year-old who read novels far beyond her grade level. We lived in a quiet suburb outside Chicago, the kind with neatly trimmed hedges and seasonal wreaths on every door. Our routines were simple: morning drop-offs, after-school snacks, weekend grocery runs, and family movie nights with popcorn and arguments about which film to watch. It was the kind of life that didn't make headlines, but I cherished it. Until the envelope arrived. It was waiting on the doormat when I got back from my shift at the hospital. I worked part-time as a psychiatric nurse, something I'd returned to after years of staying home with the kids. My hair was still damp from the fall drizzle when I noticed the envelope. Cream cardstock, thick, expensive, and embossed with gold lettering. I recognized the handwriting instantly. "From Ava," I muttered, swallowing the lump that rose in my throat. My sister Ava, 5 years younger. Always the one who lit up a room before I even stepped into it. The one people compared me to my whole life without even realizing the damage it did. I slipped the envelope open with one practiced swipe of my finger. "You are joyfully invited to the wedding of Ava Monroe and Richard Langford." My breath caught. Richard Langford, real estate mogul. A man whose name was etched into half the luxury buildings in the city. The press had been speculating for months. Rumors of an engagement, photos of them at galas and fundraisers, all smiles and tailored perfection. She had done it. Again. And yet, despite everything, I RSVP'd yes. Because no matter how complicated our relationship had been, Ava was still my sister. And sisters show up. Planning weekend brunches, dress fittings, and menu tastings with Ava felt like slipping into an old, uncomfortable pair of shoes. Familiar but tight in all the wrong places. "Do you think this neckline is too revealing for the ceremony?" she asked one afternoon, twirling in a slinky, diamond-studded gown. "It's elegant," I said carefully, watching her twirl in front of a mirror taller than our childhood bunk beds. She smirked. "That's code for you'd never wear it." I forced a smile. "You always could pull off things I couldn't." Her laughter echoed through the boutique. "That's because you're practical. I'm reckless." And that, in a single sentence, was the essence of our relationship. Marcus, to his credit, tried to be supportive during the wedding whirlwind. He drove me to tastings, helped with Noah and Lily's school schedules, even offered to build a handmade guestbook frame as a gift for Ava and Richard. Still, I noticed the shift. He was quieter, distant, often absorbed in his phone late at night, screen turned away from me. "Work stuff," he'd murmur. But then came the moment I couldn't ignore. It was Noah, small and observant, who first saw the cracks I missed. "Mom," he said one night while we built a dinosaur puzzle together. "Why does Daddy smile when Aunt Ava texts?" I paused, my hand hovering over the T-Rex's tail. "What do you mean?" "He always checks his phone and then gets this weird smile. Like when Lily saw her crush at school." I tried to laugh, but it came out dry. Adults smile at texts all the time. Noah shrugged and went back to the puzzle. But my heart stayed caught in that sentence like a splinter under skin. A week before the wedding, I was sorting through a stack of place cards at Ava's downtown condo when Marcus showed up unexpectedly. "I just wanted to drop off the frame," he said, setting it against the wall. Ava beamed. "You're a lifesaver. Elise, you've got a good one." "I know," I said too quickly. Then I saw it. The glance. It lasted only a second, but it was real. Ava looking at Marcus. Marcus pretending not to see her. The air thickened, clung to my skin. I brushed it off. Had to. Until the morning of the wedding. It was a cold, crisp October morning. The kind where the leaves crunch underfoot and the sky feels paper-thin. Ava's wedding was set to take place in a lavish vineyard just outside the city. As we packed the car, Noah tugged on my sleeve. "I have something to show you, but don't get mad." I crouched to his level. "What is it, sweetheart?" He held out an old phone I didn't recognize. One of Marcus's previous ones, I realized. Noah had found it under the bed weeks ago and, being curious, had turned it on. "I wasn't snooping," he said. "But I saw her name a lot. Aunt Ava." My fingers trembled as I took the phone. Noah tapped into a message thread, and I saw it. Months, no years, of messages. Late-night rendezvous. Photos. Nicknames I didn't recognize. Hotel confirmations. I gasped, dropping the phone like it burned me. "Mom!" Noah whispered, eyes wide. I hugged him tight. "You did nothing wrong." At the venue, champagne flowed, guests laughed, and a quartet played love songs as if the world hadn't just collapsed in my chest. I found Ava near the bridal suite, radiant in white lace, veil cascading like a waterfall behind her. "We need to talk," I said, voice like iron. "Now." "Elise, I'm about to walk down the aisle." I held up the phone. Her smile shattered. Seconds later, I was standing in front of Richard Langford himself, the groom, his tie half knotted. His best man chatting behind him. "I'm sorry to do this, but you need to see something." I handed him the phone. I watched the color drain from his face. Watched the laughter in his eyes vanish like steam. He looked up at me, jaw clenched. "Thank you," he said quietly before turning and walking, briskly, purposefully, toward the chapel. He never made it to the altar. Instead, a stunned crowd watched as the wedding was cancelled, guests dismissed, and the bride disappeared into a back room. Later I found Ava there. Her eyes bloodshot, mascara streaking like war paint. "You were always the favorite," she spat, like the words had been simmering inside her for years. "You were the one with the stable life, the perfect kids, the marriage." I wanted something. Anything. Just one thing that was mine first. My voice was a whisper. "So you took him." She didn't answer. She didn't need to. I left her there, sobbing behind $1,000 veil, and drove home in silence. Marcus was packing when I arrived. "I never meant to." "You did," I cut in. "You meant to every time. Now get out." Quietly. For the kids. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even watching Marcus walk out the door with a duffel bag of hastily packed clothes. His wedding ring left on the kitchen counter like it meant nothing. The hardest part was sitting across the breakfast table from my children the next morning and pretending everything was okay. Lily, wise beyond her years, studied my face. "Is Dad coming back?" "No, sweetheart," I said, stroking her hand. "Not this time." She didn't cry. She just nodded and pushed her cereal around the bowl. Noah, on the other hand, climbed into my lap and buried his head in my chest. I held him tighter than I probably should have and whispered, "You were so brave." 'Cause he was. If he hadn't shown me those messages. I didn't finish the thought. Couldn't. The days that followed were quiet, brittle things. My phone buzzed with messages. Sympathy from friends, confusion from relatives, and one long, pathetic apology from Marcus that I didn't even finish reading. Eva tried calling too. I didn't answer. Instead, I did what I always did. I put my head down and got to work. I contacted a lawyer. I began documenting everything. Dates, times, messages, finances. I sat the kids down and explained as gently as I could what divorce meant. I moved our joint savings into an account in my name and changed every password Marcus might still remember. Then I did something harder. Called a realtor. 2 months later, the house was sold. Not because I had to, our prenup gave me leverage, but because I couldn't live there anymore. The walls echoed with too many memories, and every room whispered his name. I found a modest craftsman home on the other side of town. Nothing fancy, but cozy and mine. The backyard had a swing set. The front porch had space for my favorite rocking chair. I enrolled Noah in therapy. He started drawing again, dinosaurs of course, but now with families. Sometimes the dad was missing. Sometimes the mom was a T-Rex with fire in her eyes. Lily coped in her own way, silently, methodically, by organizing everything. Her books by genre, her clothes by color, her thoughts into neat little boxes she didn't share with anyone. Gave them space. and I gave myself permission to crumble, just a little, when they were asleep. Work at the clinic became my lifeline. I picked up more hours, accepted a new counseling rotation, and found purpose in helping people piece together their own shattered lives. It felt poetic in a way. My supervisor, Dr. Myers, noticed the change. "You're more present," she told me one afternoon. "It's like you stopped holding your breath." I guess I did. The last person I expected to see again was Richard Langford. It happened on a windy Thursday in January. I was picking up groceries when I spotted him in the checkout line ahead of me. Tall, composed, but with a sadness in his eyes that hadn't been there the last time I saw him in a tux. He turned. Eyes met. "Elise," he said, startled. "Richard." For a moment we just stood there. Two casualties of the same emotional war. "I've thought about reaching out," he admitted. "But I didn't know if you'd want to hear from me." "I wasn't sure either," I said honestly. "But here we are." We went for coffee. One coffee became two. Then lunch. Then a conversation that stretched long into the afternoon. We didn't talk about Ava or Marcus at first. We talked about work, about our families, about how our lives had changed. He'd called off the engagement permanently, sold the vineyard, moved into a downtown apartment, and threw himself into charity work. Real estate was still his business, but he'd started funding low-income housing projects. Something more grounded, he said. More real. "It's funny," he said during one of our long walks along the river. "I used to think the right partner would make my life perfect. Turns out the right one makes it honest." He nodded. "Perfection is overrated." By spring we were friends. Real friends. Not romantic. Not complicated. Just two people who had been through a hurricane and somehow found each other on the other side of the wreckage. He came by sometimes for dinner. Helped Lily with math. Let Noah explain the difference between a stegosaurus and a triceratops. For the 100th time. The kids liked him. He did too. There was peace in it. Respect. And then, just when I thought the past was finally behind me, Christmas arrived. It was Christmas Eve. The tree glowed softly in the corner. The kids were watching a holiday movie in their pajamas while I folded laundry and sipped wine, grateful for the first quiet moment in days. Then came the knock. I opened the door, and there she was. Eva. Thinner. Paler. Eyes rimmed with regret. "Elise," she said, voice trembling. "Can I come in?" I stared at her for a long moment. Everything in me screamed to close the door, to protect what little peace I had. But then I saw Lily peek from behind the couch. I saw Noah look up, confused. And I remembered something my own therapist once said. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing your own peace over their punishment. I stepped aside. "Just for tonight," I said. She walked in slowly, as if the house itself might reject her. We sat in the living room. Richard, who'd dropped off gifts earlier, had already left, thankfully. Ava didn't say much. Just looked around at the tree, the stockings, the photos on the wall. "You built something beautiful," she whispered. "I'm rebuilding," I corrected. "Piece by piece." She nodded. "I messed up," she said. "I've spent every day since trying to figure out why I did it. And the truth is, I don't even know anymore. I just wanted to feel important. Wanted to matter to someone." "You mattered to me," I said, surprising even myself. "You were my sister. I would have done anything for you." Her eyes welled up. "I'm sorry. I didn't say I forgave her. I didn't promise anything. But I poured her tea and let her sit by the fire with the kids. We didn't talk about the affair. We didn't talk about the wedding. We just sat. And for the first time in months, the silence wasn't heavy. It was healing. Later, after the kids went to bed, Ava stood at the door, hesitating. "Do you hate me?" "No," I said. "But I don't trust you." She nodded. "That's fair." Then she left, and the cold winter air rushed in behind her like a breath I'd been holding for too long. It's strange how the heart adjusts to grief. Not all at once, but in waves. First there's the shock, then anger, then the long ache of disbelief. But eventually, almost quietly, peace begins to arrive. Not because everything is fixed, but because you've chosen to stop bleeding. That's where I was, months after Ava walked out on Christmas Eve. I was still healing, but I had stopped bleeding. Spring came early that year. The kind of spring that makes people plant flowers and take walks just for the sake of walking. Life had settled into a rhythm again. School drop-offs, therapy appointments, Saturday pancakes. Lily was smiling more. And Noah had started calling our new home the Dinosaur Cave. At work, I was offered a promotion, lead counselor for family trauma cases. It was the first time in years I'd felt seen professionally, not just as someone's wife or someone's mother, but as Elise Hammond, capable and whole. Said yes. As for Richard, our friendship deepened in quiet, consistent ways. He never pushed, never rushed. He understood that I was not ready for anything more, and he respected the boundaries without ever making me feel guilty for them. Sometimes he brought coffee to my office. Sometimes I met him after work for walks or charity events. The kids saw him as a friend of the family, and I was happy to keep it that way. But there was a moment, a soft, simple moment that changed something. We were sitting on a park bench after a fundraiser, the sun setting over the lake, and he said, "You don't have to say anything, but I want you to know, I've never admired anyone the way I admire you." I didn't respond right away. Just took his hand. Not romantic, not yet, but full of understanding, and maybe the beginning of something more. In April, I ran into Marcus at a school function. It was the first time we'd seen each other in person since the divorce was finalized. He looked older, not in the physical sense, but tired. His smile was practiced. His eyes avoided mine. He came alone. We spoke briefly about the kids. He asked how they were adjusting. "They're doing well," I said simply. "I miss them. You can call them." He looked down at his shoes. "I'm not proud of how everything happened." "You're not proud," I said, "but you were comfortable with it for years." He flinched. "You were supposed to be my safe place, Marcus. Instead, you became the secret I didn't know was being whispered behind my back." There was nothing left to say after that. He nodded and walked away. Summer brought a new energy. The clinic expanded. I started leading weekend workshops for women coming out of broken marriages. Survivors, fighters, women who thought they had no voice until life forced them to scream. I told them my story. Not all the details, but enough. And when one of them asked, "How did you forgive him?" I answered honestly, "I didn't. I moved on." Then one afternoon in July, I got a call from Ava. I nearly let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. "Elise," she said softly. I just wanted to say thank you. For letting me come that night. For not turning me away." Her voice cracked. "I'm getting help. Therapy. Real therapy. And I've started volunteering at a shelter downtown." I stayed quiet. "I know I can't undo what I did," she continued. "But I'm trying to be better. I just wanted you to know." "Thank you for telling me," I said. And that was enough. Months passed. One day, Richard came over with a picnic basket and a plan. We took the kids to the botanical gardens. Lily wore her favorite sun hat. Noah tried to name every flower after a dinosaur. We sat beneath a weeping cherry tree, and for the first time in years, I felt something that wasn't panic or guilt or grief. Felt joy. When Richard took my hand that day, it wasn't tentative. It was certain. And this time I didn't pull away. On the first anniversary of the cancelled wedding, I didn't think about dresses or invitations or broken promises. I thought about how far we had come. I looked around our home, the messy kitchen, the art on the fridge, the books scattered on the couch, and felt something powerful. Pride. Not the kind that shouts. The kind that settles deep in your bones. Because you've walked through fire and didn't burn. Because you raised good children. Because you found yourself after being lost for too long. I used to believe that family was defined by blood and rings and traditions. Now I know better. Family is built on truth, on trust, on the hard conversations and the quiet forgiveness that follows. It's in the people who show up, Not when it's convenient, but when it's hardest. It's in the ones who don't walk away when things get messy. Ava and I still aren't close. And maybe we never will be. But I've made peace with that. Not every story has to end in perfect reunion. Sometimes the victory is simply in surviving and rebuilding. This is my story. Not about betrayal, but about what comes after. Not about who left, but about who stayed. Not about falling apart, but about learning to rise again. Because life isn't about perfection. It's about the courage to start over. And the strength to write the ending yourself. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. If you like this story, please subscribe to our channel to receive more stories every day. Share with us what you think of this story and tell us where you're watching from.